Hey, what's going on, guys? Back with the part 2. Finally got all my parts here. About 2 days later, I ended up going ahead and replacing every single line, both coolant and oil, because I didn't want to risk long-term problems. So I'm going to give you a quick update of where I'm at, what I'm doing. I'm going to put torque specs and tools again. I'm going to update the tool list on part 1 and for this part 2. So turbo is in right now, but I'm going to show you what I did. I couldn't really film it and get it done. I'm trying to get this car back together tonight, and it's kind of hard to do both. Don't have a cameraman. So basically, a lot of people say to put the oil return on the turbo before installing it. And because these are plastic, I tried it, but it was really difficult, and I wasn't wanting to break the new one. So what I ended up doing, I'm going to go down here on the bottom so I can show you. I took the oil return off and took it off from the turbo, because with the converter out of the way, you can get to the bolts for that, which are E10 Torx, the Torx sockets, inverted Torx. This bracket, which is 2 T40 Torx, take this bracket off to get your turbo in without your return line on, get it mostly in, and you can reach up through here. I don't know if I can get the camera on it. It's kind of hard to do. But the coolant line, this one on the bottom, yeah, you can kind of see up through there. On this one, it came with an Allen instead of a hex head, which kind of made it easier to get past that bracket for the AC compressor. I believe that's what that is. I think it was an H12, hex 12 socket. To get that started in the block, I assembled both the coolant lines into the turbo before putting it in, kind of snaked everything around. And it wasn't the most enjoyable, but it goes in a lot easier not having to worry about getting this into the hole without breaking it. And once the turbo's in, not really bolted down, but just on the studs, I went ahead and torqued those down, put my return line in, and I'm kind of back on the top now. The kit comes with new studs and the copper nuts. So you can put 2 small nuts on the stud and jam them together, and usually you can get the stud out that way, or get a stud extractor, change those out, get those in. The plate right here, that goes on in that direction, right behind the nuts here, before you put your nuts on. I hooked this hose on, but I haven't clamped it up yet. And then once the turbo's torqued down, I'll go ahead and put that in, which I believe is a T20. I'll have to check again. And I'm going to do my oiling up my bearing here in just a second. The kit comes with a little injector to put oil in here, and I'll probably reach the exhaust side and spin it a little bit, make sure that bearing gets well lubricated before the first startup. Yeah, you can kind of see that Allen straight down in there. But and I took, just like on the removal, I took this off. Make sure you don't lose that C-clip, like I said. That gives me room to get to the bottom ones. There's 4 exhaust manifold nuts, as you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Top and bottom. That one's a little hard to get to. But the top ones are easy, and the bottom ones, it helps if you have magnetic sockets, so you don't, well, I guess magnetic wouldn't really help you, but most of the time you could use magnetic if you didn't have copper nuts. But this one, I put a little tape on the end of the nut head and crammed the socket over it so it would stay tight, and it wouldn't, as I'm guiding it in here, it wouldn't fall off. Once I get this fastened down, I'll oil that up, put this back on my diaphragm, wastegate diaphragm, and start fastening some more things up. I just wanted to give you guys the quick update of where I'm at, and I will tighten up a couple more things and go from there. All right, guys, I'm wrapping up the top here. So I used my injector to put into oil feed. I reached in here, spun it around, made sure the bearing was good and oiled as best I could. Got my C-clip back on, these two nuts, and oil feed is fastened down. Everything's fastened down, all these. On this line, clamps, this is coming from here. I've got this out of the way for right now. The air, or the PCV line, I run that back to here. Quick connect, follow that vacuum line, hooks onto that. The other thing is I need to plug in this actuator. I've got the connector dangling down there. Like I said, I'll put torque specs for everything that I know is getting torqued. And we are getting ready to head to the bottom once I put this air hose on. I'm gonna go ahead and do this to this. And by the way, just to clarify, make sure all these locking rings go around all your harnesses and your vacuum lines. I'm not putting this on for right now. It's just these two 10mm underneath the plastic cover. That way I can still get to converter exhaust bolting up, and obviously flathead or 8mm, tighten up these intake boots right here, and then we're gonna head down to the bottom. One more point I forgot to mention. Getting that turbo assembly down there, I had to take the radiator mounts off, upper mounts, so I could push the fan and radiator assembly back just a bit to clear it. It's a little tight getting it down in there. So I took the clips out of here, these two, and there's a bolt like that with a bracket. But anyways, I took those out. They're 13mm, as you can see here. So just figured I would mention that. All right, guys. So I got the converter back on. It's kind of finicky. I don't know if you can see that nut that's right in there. There's two of them that hold the converter in place. What was easier, I found, to hold it up and get the band clamp on and the gasket that goes in between. It's kind of difficult with one person. I put it on that top stud and just barely finger tighten the nut so it just wouldn't fall off. And then you can, from the top, grab the side, push it up against the turbo, put your band clamp on. I still need to tighten that down. It's a 13mm. This kit that I'm putting in the description, it comes with all that, all the gaskets, hardware, new bolts. It's a pretty good kit. I'm pretty happy so far. Haven't seen it run yet, so we'll see, but it seems pretty inclusive. So, but yeah, and also your charge line coming off your turbo, go ahead and tighten that up and put that on. And we're gonna now attach the flex pipe to the converter on the bottom. It's 3 13mm nuts. There's studs coming out of the converter. There's a gasket there too, like a metal gasket, so go ahead and replace that. Put that on, and then we should be getting pretty close to putting these skid plates up, which are all 10mm and T15, T20 Torx. There's two skid plates, as you can see here. This one goes into your bumper assembly, and the one further back goes up into that one also, bolts into that and the front subframe. So you're going to want to put this one in first, and then you can fasten your other one in once you get your collector or flex pipe installed. you can do a general check over, and also by now, if you haven't changed your oil, the 10mm drain plug, you can see straight down there, right there. So go ahead and put that one on. Good thing about these GMs, they put torque specs on everything, so you can go by what's on the pan. But yeah, go ahead and change your oil, because you don't want old oil going into your turbo system. Also, your filter right here, I believe it was a 24mm. That cartridge comes out. Change the O-ring, change the filter, tighten it back down to the torque spec. I believe it's 25 Newton meters, I believe. Yep. And so that is your oil filter. Obviously this one takes 530. I'll put a listing and description also of the oil capacity. And always check it after replacing anything in the lubrication system. Because, you know, there might be a little oil that was in the turbo or in the lines that is not accounted for on original fill up. So always check it after you fill it up, run it for a little bit, go from there. I'm not going to be able to start it on this video because I need to get some coolant tomorrow. But just a quick synopsis to wrap this video up. Like I said, I'll put all the part numbers and torque specs and tools in part 1 and part 2 together. And obviously this goes here, plastic trim goes over. And I know this video wasn't as detailed as the part 1, but I'll make the description very noticeably informative. So also obviously O2 sensor, make sure that's clean, pop that in, 22mm as always. And then you're going to want to check for exhaust leaks on first cold startup. If you want, what you can do, and what I'm probably going to do, is what I'm going to do. This is your coil packs right here. Probably going to just unplug the main connector and try to start it for a couple starts. Obviously, don't let the starter try to run for more than 5-10 seconds because you don't want to burn the starter up. But that will get oil flowing throughout the motor into the turbo, kind of get everything lubricated real well. Plug that back in, start it up, check for codes, clear codes. And then you're going to want to obviously not drive it super hard to break the turbo in. Make sure the bearings get lubricated and have no issues. And don't forget that there is going to be your engine brackets right here that are going to go one right here and one right there. That's your engine lift out brackets. It's like they do. This thing was going to need engine replacements, but anyways. And then also you've got your little, if I can find them here, your studs. I'll look for them in just a second, but there's little threaded studs that go in right above the header. That's for your heat shield. It's threaded inserts, they thread in, and then you can put your little T10 Torx covering your heat shield up. Exhaust manifold. I'm not going to put the heat shield on until I first start it. Make sure there's no leaks. Check your feed line and coolant lines. Make sure you don't have any leaks. Probably as always best on most cars, if you want, you have the tool, you can hook into this reservoir, try to vacuum the system down, and then put coolant into it to get all the air out of it to help it bleed. If not, these things are pretty decent at bleeding themselves. And always having the front end jacked up helps, because this gets this higher than the rest of the coolant system. Get all the air pockets out. But I think that's enough information. I'm going to wrap this up for tonight. But this will complete the part 2. And if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. Hope this helped you guys out. And remember, clean out your intercooler, try to blow out your charge lines. And what I'm also going to do, pull your intake boot off, clean your throttle body. It's just that flathead right there. Pop the boot off, clean your throttle body. That always helps with smooth idling and throttle response and other good things. Got to do as much as you can to help these poor ecotecs out, because they obviously have their issues. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the series. There'll be definitely more videos to come. I'll probably do a common problems video on this thing tomorrow on these type of vehicles, which will cover a lot of the ecotecs. Yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm gonna wrap it up. See you guys in the next one.